Good evening. I'm one of the few people that are between you and a drink, so I'll try to do it fast. As Todd said, I've spent the last, I think, 15 years in the belly of big corporations in trouble. So when they lose their way, when they lose their understanding of the context that they're in, when they don't understand what people are using their stuff for. And that means that people don't, in my world, don't necessarily look like you do. They don't talk about tango, and they don't talk about dreams very much. So I'll try to show you what kind of world that is and what kind of battle is going on in there. And there's a battle going on between two types of understanding of what it means to be us, what it means to be a human being. And I'll try to take you through in warp speed through this battle that is basically grounded in continental European philosophy, and that I see every day in these grand corporations. And the trouble is that one of these two is being wiped out. And I'll explain why that's important and probably the most important thing happening right now. Now, this is a picture of a situation that most of us know. A colleague of mine called Paul Radcliffe made a project a couple of years ago which was half ethnography, half kind of art project, I think, where he asked people to visualize different kinds of situations that you're in as a person during a week. This is a picture of a round of pictures where he asked people what was the best moment the last week. And a lady, let's call her Lucy, sent in this picture. Now, it's from a day, one of those New York days, where it rains and it pours so much that Lucy had a crappy umbrella. It went like this, and she was just drenched. And you know that kind of wetness or wet feeling you get when you're just completely soaked, and the wool starts smelling a little bit because the heat from your body changes the situation. So it was misery, basically. And she says when she went to stick her umbrella in the trash can, she saw that happened to a lot of other people. And that made the situation shift from misery to delight in a second. It suddenly became the best moment that week. And that story is only interesting or funny or human because she could put herself in the life and in the shoes of these people. She had the ability to interpret the situation to a situation of delight. And I think the reason why some of you laugh is because you can do that too. You have the ability to understand what that is. Maybe because you've tried it yourself, or maybe because you have the same connection to humanity that she had. Now, that's not the kind of understanding of what we're best at and what it means to be human that I meet every day. I meet the complete opposite. And I'll try to give you a quote. This is from the magazine Wired. It's a couple of years ago by the former editor of the magazine. And this talks about interpretation and the need of interpretation. He says, this is Chris Anderson, the former editor of the magazine. He says, this is a world where massive amounts of data and applied mathematics replace every other tool that might be brought to bear. Out with every theory of human behavior, from linguistics to sociology. Forget taxonomy, ontology, and psychology. Who knows why people do what they do? The point is that they do it. And we can track and measure it with unprecedented fidelity. With enough data, the number speaks for themselves. Now, this is, of course, from San Francisco and the monoculture that is called Silicon Valley. And the basic idea here is that the mind is basically, you can basically reduce the human spirit to the mind, and you can reduce the mind to the brain. And what's important is that the mind is basically looking like a computer. It's a machine that you can tap into. Now, where does this idea come from? It's an old idea, and I think if you take the most important person in the world, it's this guy. He lived 400 years ago. His name is René Descartes. And he defined basically the core research program that's dominating the big corporations today. His idea was to withdraw himself to a warm room. He did this in southern Germany. We'll go back to southern Germany later for a better story. But he would withdraw to a warm room and think. It needed to be warm so the body wouldn't be annoying. So he could think purely about things. And his conclusion was, not surprisingly, that we are thinking things. What's important about us is that we can think, because even if he doubted it, he would be thinking, right? And he built his whole philosophy from there. And his main idea was, we have access to our inner states. We can reflect on what we need and dream and want. And not only can we reflect on that, we can also report on that. And when we report on that, we do that with precision and with honesty. Now, if you think about modern market research, it's an industry of around $50 billion a year. It's the way that big corporations are trying to understand us. It is about putting people either behind a screen or writing on paper or in a focus group and asking us what we think about this or that. Would we like this beer or that beer? Would we pay $5 or $4? Would we like that car or that car? Right? Because we have access to our inner states and because we can report on those, that is a possibility. Now, this is something that happens all the time, that when people have been asked, when enough people have been asked, and 76% thinks this or that beer or this beer, that's what has been acted upon. Now, the research program that's going on in the big business schools of the world, in lots of universities, is based on this idea that we have access to inner states, and it's the thinking part of us that's most important. As you know, Aristotle said that we are rational animals. He said, yes, but the animal piece is not so important. It's the rational piece. It's our ability to compute that's important about us. Now, this is, of course, important because neuroscience, as you've heard a lot today, has the same idea. You can peek into the mind, and that's what's important about us. If you can find the spirit and the soul in the brain by neuroscience, like neurons that fire, we would know everything about us. It's the same with big data. Because I have a mobile phone and I click on things online and I buy things online, they know more about me than I know about myself, or so they say. And it's also the case with the general kind of trying to understand why people do the things they do and what they buy and so on. So this is something that goes on. The other side of that has been wiped out almost completely. The ability to use our own humanity to understand others, to be in the shoes of others. Now, this guy lived a little further south. His name is Martin Heidegger. And he's the hope, I think. If you wanted to make a philosophical death match, the René from before and Martin now is probably the two kind of heaviest fighters on each side. His idea of us was completely opposite. What's important about us is our ability to be engaged in things, to care about things, and to be geared into the world. It's our ability to understand others and be part of humanity in a broader sense. So it's not the thinking piece, though we certainly can do that, that's most important. It is the feeling of being in complete flow that is us when we're at our best. And I think you all know this when you write or code or whatever you do, that it's the last thing you want to do in that moment is thinking, right? You want to be completely engaged in it. And that's what's important about us. So what he said was, Descartes was right about many things, but he was wrong about human spirit, and he was wrong about us. Why is that important? Well, it's important because if we want to solve some of the biggest problems we have, we need to refer to this guy, not the one before. And so, let's say, right now, 100% of the money that goes into understanding diabetes goes into new technology, goes into creating technology that will solve it somehow. and doesn't go into understanding why is it that people are not in control with their disease? Why do they not take their medicine? What kind of culture is that like? Why do they think it's the wrath of God? Why do they think it's the breathing exercises that's wrong? All kinds of things that are cultural and social and contextual and not atomistic like the guy before. The same with, say, climate change. Now, all the money, the government money, the private money that goes into researching climate change goes into new technology. So high technology risk and not really knowing what's going on. But we have technologies like, say, insulation and windows, unsexy as they are, but they're not implemented yet. Why is it? What are the social reasons? What are the cultural reasons that we do not understand that leads to the fact that very few people, say in America, have those properly installed? That means that the big problems are not just technological. And we won't understand them if we use technological understanding and a technological understanding of us as atomistic thinking things. If we apply a different model, which would be a cultural, contextual, social, where we are beings that are geared into the world and into each other's lives, we would understand much better and get much better results. I'll leave you with that.